Active skill, Shadow Extraction, LVL1. Info, shadows drain 50 MP every minute, a value which will decrease as level of skill increases. Initial extraction takes 20 MP. Naruto tried to ignore the fact that Zabuza just said that he would kill the man, and instead focused on the enemy in front of him. He couldn't allow the death of the target, but he also needed to defeat him as fast as possible. Kuratsuchi most likely wouldn't be able to see in the mist while it lasted, and wouldn't want to waste time trying to fight here. Maybe she would try and help Ibuki out with his fight? They were just supposed to be bandits, but considering the leader happened to be a shinobi himself, it wouldn't be a surprise if the rest were as well. Zabuza, are you able to locate him? Naruto asked probingly, pulling out a kunai from his pouch. Of course I can, Zabuza answered immediately, sounding offended that Naruto even asked that. The problem is that I'm too weak right now. Right. Naruto completely forgot about that. Shadow Zabuza was strong, but paled in comparison to the real person. The summon was probably around Chunin level, but physically might have been even lower. It was only because of experience and technique that kept him in the contending ranks for now. If Zabuza had been in his old form, the fight surely wouldn't have taken this long. Naruto closed his eyes. He couldn't rely on sight right now in the middle of so much mist. He listened, and listened hard, straining his ears tightly. The sound of bustling and the heavy footsteps filled his ears. In front of us. Use Uchiha Taijutsu. Activating. Skill. Uchiha Clan Taijutsu, LVL3 activated. Usage drains 15 MP points each minute. User can use this skill for 1 minute without draining MP. His skill, which was now level 3 due to the recent month of training with Kakashi, quickly took over his body. Naruto jumped into the air, avoiding the massive body which barreled into the place he was once in. The genin winced. If he had been hit with that, Zabuza swung his gigantic sword with practiced efficiency, aiming for the crook of the man's neck. The man slapped his hands together and caught the legendary sword in his palms. Zabuza's eyes widened before narrowing once more. He applied even more pressure on the top of the handle, letting the sword loosen from the man's tight grip, before lunging down and swiping at the opponent's legs. The target merely jumped back, the attack altogether, but at the same, Zabuza still had his sword. That sword. I think I recognize it from somewhere. Regardless, I'm not going to ask what type of jutsu this is. Kids these days with their Kekkai Genkai and clan jutsus. Why make it so hard for the rest of us normal ninja? The man whined, before his voice hardened. Doesn't matter, I guess. After this, one less Kekkai Genkai left in this world. My name is Zenki. I think it's fair for you to know the name of the last person you'll ever meet, right? Naruto found it weird how the target, or Zenki for that matter, referred to his shadow extraction as a Kekkai Genkai, but it also made a bit of sense to do so. When encountering a new jutsu that almost seemed unimaginable to the eye, it was a fair result to assume it to be some type of bloodline. But it wasn't in this case. Zenki flashed through hand signs at a practice speed. Wind release. Great breakthrough. A torrent of gust erupted from his mouth, the intention of the jutsu clear. He's trying to blow the mist away, but that won't work so easily, would it? Naruto thought to himself. The strength of the wind was very high, but the mist still partially remained. That was due to the amount of chakra Naruto had poured into the jutsu, and the comparatively lower amount Zenki used for his own. It wasn't much, but Zenki could see now. You're just a kid? Huh. I'll have fun destroying you. And then Zenki ran. Naruto met him in the middle, depending on his taijutsu to carry his fight. The bald, muscular man threw a ridiculously fast wide hook, which was promptly dodged by Naruto, ducking at the last minute. Naruto took the opening to his advantage and launched a fist to Zenki's stomach, which was completely open for his attack. Zenki merely chuckled in response. Oh no! The man lunged down and grabbed Naruto's leg, before pulling the boy to the air. Naruto struggled against his grasp, but Zenki's physicality was too strong. A clean, final hit seemed inevitable, but Zabuza was still in the fight. Immediately behind Zenki, the legendary swordsman swiped his sword at neck once again. Naruto was promptly released in an attempt to escape the attack by Zenki, who was forced to back off himself. It kind of worked, but the slash on Zenki's back said otherwise. Blood leaked onto the floor, the ruby color even visible through the partially thick mist. Naruto grinned at the sight. It was pure, brute strength versus a swordsman and an all-rounder like Naruto. I need to get a solid hit and knock this guy out. But I can't do something like that with my own strength with how much stronger this guy is physically. Maybe. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 12 or so clones manifested around the genin, each of them running towards the opponent before them with haste. Oh, the little kitten wants to add some more players on the field? Zenki grinned, casually shifting into his stance. It's all right, come at me. Zenki's muscles tensed, contracting for a brief second, before he exploded from his static position. His clones tried their best, they really did, but it was completely futile. Each punch and kick of the Baldy destroyed 2 of his clones at once, the sheer strength and speed of his attacks impossible to block or deflect. Zabuza snorted at the brief fight, before looking at Naruto seriously. I might have a plan. Naruto swerved his head at great speeds to listen to the good news. But you might have to take a good hit or two, and I need a way to get near that man. Naruto winced as he imagined the pain. A hit from Zenki? Yeah, that would definitely hurt. A lot. And about getting near to the monstrosity without being hit to oblivion? That was a lot to ask for as well. But they could try something. Naruto summoned a clone. He cast a meaningful look at Zabuza's weapon. Your sword. The shadow smirked, something which looked incredibly creepy on the undead man's face. Naruto looked at his MP with dread. Only 50 remaining, which meant barely 1 minute left with Zabuza. He quickly disabled his Uchiha clan taijutsu skill, making sure not to waste any more MP. This was their only chance. The clones were all demolished. Zenki glared at the remaining 2 figures in front of him. There you are. Shadow Zabuza clenched his sword tightly. Here. He threw his sword with frightening speeds, the blade revolving as it flew towards its target. Knowing how damaging the weapon was, Zenki couldn't afford to try and stop it with his hands, which left only one option. Dodge. The blade passed by Zenki's body, who quickly sidestepped past the attack. Ah, now I recognize you. You're Zabuza Momochi of the Mist, correct? Zenki asked, eyeing the shadow amusedly. You don't seem as strong as the stories describe you as, and you're just as smart as you appear, dumbass. Zabuza's blade disappeared into smoke, as Naruto appeared a second later. It was fitting that Zabuza used the same technique that was once used against him. Zenki's eyes widened. Naruto's hands went through the signs of another jutsu. The jutsu Kakashi had actually taught him first, before teaching him the next one with great reluctance. Water release, surging sea. A monstrous amount of water generated from Naruto's mouth, aiming at Zenki's general direction. The tsunami of water doused the man with great force, but he didn't budge at all. The liquid collided with the rest of the environment in a similar fashion. A large amount of water remained on the terrain, creating a layer of blue on the otherwise rough road. Naruto stood, completely doused by his own jutsu. His black hair laid flat on his forehead, just as wet as his clothes. He painted slightly, before taking a deep breath. He needed to do this. Sending a pulse of chakra to his feet, Naruto began running on water. Annoying, Zenki muttered, shaking off some water from his clothes. At least now it will be even more fun to beat the life out of you and that idiot girl. Karatsuchi? Where the hell even is she? Naruto thought, before shaking those thoughts out his mind. He needed to couse. The man grinned, showing his surprisingly pearly teeth. All right then, let's do this. Naruto ducked as a speeding kick went past his head. He took the opportunity to come closer to the giant and threw a fist to his jaw. With a satisfying crunch, the attack landed. Yes, but Zenki chuckled once again. Naruto's blood went cold. He was completely open. Zenki appeared in front of him in an instant, grabbing his face roughly. He literally picked the genin up with one hand, before smashing his face into the rocky road underneath. Naruto gasped in pain as he felt his nose break immediately at the contact, the organ leaking blood soon after. The water, which had slightly decreased the impact, became a murky red. How does it feel? The man asked, grinning sinisterly. Naruto just grinned, accidentally tasting the metallic blood which reached his lips. Great. Why the hell did I do that? A brief flash of anger went through Zenki's face before he smiled once again. It won't be feeling great for long, trust me. Zenki threw his body to the sky like a rag doll before jumping along. Naruto's whole vision was a nightmare, his rapidly spinning body not letting him get a proper view of his surroundings. Naruto lurched forward as a leg implanted itself into his stomach, dropping him back to the ground with a loud splash. The pain was unbearable. Definitely the worst he had ever felt, without a doubt. Kakashi's training didn't compare to this at all. Naruto's hinge had disappeared by now, revealing his much shorter stature and blonde hair for the world to see. Ding! Vitality has increased by 1 level. Zenki crossed his arms together. You're even more of a kid than I thought you were. Should I feel bad now? I'm not really feeling very pitiful, though. What's your name, kid? Naruto slowly stood up. His bleeding face, torn clothes, and weak posture was not a very appealing sight to behold. The genin merely smirked. Gotcha. Water release. Water prison technique. Zabuza was always known as the silent killer. After all, a sphere of rotating, dense water encircled the man quickly, trapping him inside. Zabuza had a submerged hand in the sphere, which worked to keep the jutsu active. That was the real reason why Naruto had used his surging sea jutsu, to create the optimal environment for Zabuza's prison technique. Of course, Zabuza could have done the technique without a water body, but it would have been a lot slower, and thus much harder to trap Zenki, a physical monster, in that way. Zenki screamed and thrashed inside the sphere, but to no avail. He punched the sphere continuously, causing it to ripple and shake in response. Naruto tried not to gape at the sight. How is he so abnormally strong? Is he using chakra, or is that his regular body? Shadow Zabuza grunted. Get done with it quickly, kid. It's hard keeping a guy like him inside. Naruto sighed, placing his hands on his knees. That was seriously tiring. He ran towards Zabuza, eager to end the fight off. Look, we just need him unconscious, Naruto said matter-of-factly. Unconscious? Why not kill the bastard? Shadow Zabuza growled, bringing out his gigantic sword with his remaining hand. Naruto knew this would happen. The mission said. The water prison shook with a groan. Naruto's eyes widened with shock. The prison was breaking. The layer of water around the man became thinner and thinner as he continued to repeatedly bombard the sphere with an onslaught of punches. A second later, the man was free. With an ear-splitting roar, Zenki leaped into the air in an attempt to escape. But Naruto was already behind him. Sword! Naruto instantly screamed at Zabuza. Zabuza threw the shadow-black sword like a spear at the blonde, who caught the weapon midair. Naruto grunted at the sudden weight, pulling him down to the ground. Before Zenki could even react, Naruto spun Kubikiribocho and strike the man's head with the blunt side of the sword. Zenki was out cold. Shadow Zabuza raised an impressed eyebrow. Nice one, brat. Warning. 0 MP remaining. All MP-related skills are being disabled. The shadow and the sword dissipated into nothing, leaving Naruto alone, panting and injured. He fell on his bottom tiredly, searching for a source of energy as the regeneration started to kick in. Naruto summoned 3 clones. Clone 1 saluted. Boss, take this body to Kakashi-sensei and explain it's the bandit the mission talked about, Naruto ordered, standing up once again. And you? His clone asked worriedly. Equip Ryuji. Ryuji stared back at the clones. I've got some work to do. He needed to get the remaining bandits from the IWA team, and he had a plan to do just that. Kuratsuchi sighed with relief as she finished the last bandit with ease. They were definitely shinobi, but not close to Chunin level at all. And now, we have to deal with that other guy. Ubuki pushed his glasses up, like usual. He snorted disgustedly at the groaning bandits in the corner of the restaurant. What about the leader? Kuratsuchi hesitated. I'm not too sure, actually. She was sure she heard Ryuji's voice back then, and after the mist jutsu was released, she found it fruitless to try and help the fight. It was certainly a good thing she came back as well, with the rough time Ubuki had with the remaining bandits. They weren't very coordinated or individually strong, but they had the advantage in numbers and could have easily overpowered him. She turned around as she heard the sound of footsteps. Ryuji walked into the restaurant slowly, his eyes swirling about and alert. Naruxsaku narrowed her eyes. It was clear at this point that Ryuji wasn't a regular merchant around town, and quite the opposite. The boy met her eyes and smiled apologetically. I can explain everything. Naruxsaku raised an eyebrow. Like your merchant family? Ryuji winced. Yeah, that was a lie. Most of what I told you guys was a lie, actually. Are those the remaining bandits? Ibuki nodded curtly. And what does it matter to you? Nothing. I'm just worried they might wake up again. They won't, I'm sure of it. We beat to a pulp, Naruxsaku confirmed. Oh great. How about we talk over at that corner? I know I don't seem the most trustworthy right now, but I'm sure I can convince you otherwise, Princess of Iwagakure, and of course, the well-renowned Ibuki Fujiomi, Ryuji declared with a friendly smile. Naruxsaku was surprised. How did he know of my status? Is he a spy sent by Gramps? She wouldn't be incredibly surprised if the old man sent someone to look over her as she went on the mission, especially to a location like this. Ibuki looked at his teammate, who nodded in confirmation. We accept your offer. Haha, you don't need to be so serious, Ibuki-san, Ryuji said, chuckling. I don't care if you trust me or not, but I assure you that I'm on your side. The trio walked towards the corner of the restaurant, enclosed by the surrounding tables. Naruxsaku didn't realize at that moment that she completely lost sight of the remaining bandits, but Ryuji did. Naruxsaku glared at the boy in front of her. Well, Ryuji, can you introduce yourself again? This time the truth? Of course. Well, to start off, I was sent directly here by the Iwagakure shinobi forces. Something about a Chunin pre-examination, am I correct? Yes, that is why we were sent here as well. But I haven't seen you in any of the other genin teams, have I? Ibuki mentioned. That's right, I'm not in any of the genin teams. I was sent here to monitor the examination, or competition between Konoha and IWA, and help protect the coming IWA team if necessary. To be honest, I didn't expect you guys to come so fast, so I was slightly unprepared for your arrival. For that, I'm sorry, Ryuji said, frowning. Naruxsaku's mind was set by now. The person in front of them was genuine, at the very least. She was still mad that Gramps sent someone to monitor her, especially when she had made him promise to not treat her like a child again. But that was a matter for later. She smiled brightly at Ryuji. Well, our Jonin-sensei will probably come soon. Do you want to come back to IWA with us? I'm assuming you beat the leader, right? Jonin-sensei? Ryuji stuttered randomly. Yes? Sure. And yes, for the leader, he's completely knocked out for now. We can go and get them later. Ibuki scrunched his face, confused. Why not right now? Ryuji shrugged. Your wish. And also, one last thing. I'm sorry. For what? Ryuji turned into a cloud of smoke. Naruxsaku gasped in surprise, standing up from her seat immediately. Ibuki did the same thing, albeit without the gasp. Naruxsaku ran towards the entrance of the restaurant, looking for any remnant of the black-haired shinobi. But something felt off. She couldn't describe it, but the atmosphere itself seemed different. Naruxsaku? Ibuki slightly yelled from inside the restaurant. What? Naruxsaku snapped, frantically looking at the empty road in front of her, before looking back inside. The bandits are gone. What? Naruxsaku screamed in her head, coming to confirm the truth for herself. There was no trace of the bandits left. Ryuji had taken them all, which meant they had been played from the start. Dash. A sudden wave of memories entered Naruto's brain as he dashed back to the hotel quickly. Wait, that actually worked. The genin thought incredulously. He thought Naruxsaku and Ibuki would have asked for some kind of confirmation for his identity at the very least, and had prepared his clone for that type of response. Little did he know he didn't need to do that either. Naruto chuckled evilly. He felt a pang of remorse for lying to the kind IWA genin, but he couldn't lie. It felt good tricking people. His whole stunt was a much easier way of getting his goals accomplished without having to fight in any way. He was kind of forced to lie as well. There was no way he would stand a chance against both of them at once. I'm here, Naruto realized. He knocked on the door loudly. Kakashi-sensei. It's me, Naruto. Kakashi's voice came muffled a second later. Password? What password? Come in. Naruto opened the door with a click, smirking at the presence of a defeated Sasuke and indifferent Kakashi. Naruto looked at Sasuke knowingly and with a smug grin. "Did you find the bandits, Sasuke-kun?" Sasuke merely grunted. "No." "Well, guess who did? Come in, men." Naruto's clones barged into the room at once, dropping the unconscious or frighteningly injured bodies onto the floor. 10 bandits laid on the floor, each of the bodies matching the descriptions given in the mission list. His clones saluted, before disappearing a second later. Naruto removed his own hinge a second later, trying to deepen in his point. Kakashi looked at the men, once again, with indifference. "You found and beat all of them up?" Naruto scratched his head. "Oh well, it's a long story. I guess I'll give a short summary. I found the bandits, beat them up, and brought them here after a scramble with the IWA team. Actually, that was a bit too detailed." "Sorry." Sasuke eyed him like he was a freak. Kakashi just shrugged. Naruto frowned. He expected them to be more impressed. Sakura barged through the door a second later, the large ruckus waking her up from her own room. "What happened?" Naruto greeted her before continuing. "Like I said, it's a long story, but pretty much." "Please, not again," Sasuke said, grasping his forehead. "It's fine. I owe you some ramen." Naruto smiled victoriously. "Yep, this was a total success. So what do we do with these bodies?" Naruto asked a second later. "I'll deal with that. For now, change your hinge, so the IWA team doesn't recognize you," Kakashi mentioned, as he began moving towards the bodies. Kakashi bit his finger, allowing some blood to reveal itself through his pale skin. He put the hand to the floor, which was followed by a circle of inky, black seals enveloping the floor. More smoke appeared, and then out came a pack of dogs? All of this is getting too wild. A week later, Naruto looked at the weird, perfectly straight rock in front of him. "You guys can get out now." Konohamaru and his 2 friends crawled out of the contraption slowly after. "How uncomfortable was that?" "Naruto-sensei," the blonde groaned. He forgot about all of this with all of his time outside of Konoha. "You promised," Konohamaru yelled, pointing at his face. Naruto racked his brain to remember what he had said. "Promised what?" "You said you would play ninja with us today." Naruto winced. "Did I really say that?" Sakura smirked at her teammate. "Really, Naruto? Playing ninja with little kids?" "I can't really blame her." "Boss, who's the girl with the big forehead?" Konohamaru asked. "Oh no." Sakura's face scrunched up in anger. "What the hell did you say?" Konohamaru and his sidekicks ran away from the girl in fear, the girl in question looking truly angry as her eyes widened in rage. But then Konohamaru crashed into someone. "Calm down, kid," the person growled. The person in question wore a black, baggy bodysuit that radiated creepy energy. On where his forehead was supposed to be, an unfamiliar forehead protector was attached. Someone from another village. Why are they here? Naruto thought. Oh wait, Chunin exams. A bunch more people from other villages are most likely going to come soon, so I should be too surprised. As for this situation, it's just a misunderstanding, right? But the creepy kid didn't stop there. He grabbed Konohamaru by the neck of his shirt and pulled him up. "That's seriously hurt. Snot face." Konohamaru grunted in dismay. Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Put him down." "It was my fault anyways," Sakura apologized sincerely, because it was partly because of her. The girl next to the foreigner boy spoke out next. "Put him down, Kankuro. If he comes." Kankuro grinned. It's fine. I'm bored anyways. I don't really care." Kankuro gasped as a pulse of pain flared up in his arm, forcing him to release the kid. Naruto's kick wasn't incredibly strong, but was enough to set Konohamaru free. Naruto stood in front of the boy passively, but inside, he was angry. It seemed that Kankuro was just as mad as well, as he tried to throw a cuff at Naruto's face in response. But compared to Zenki, Kankuro was extremely slow. Naruto moved his face a mere inch, evading the fist entirely, before lunging downwards and sweeping his feet with a low kick. Kankuro fell flat on his back with a thud. The Konoha Genin waited patiently for the boy to get back up. "You'll regret that, punk," Kankuro shouted, throwing a wide punch at Naruto. He didn't need to dodge this time. Sand became alive as it rose in front of Kankuro and enclosed itself like cuffs around his hands, stopping his movement entirely. A new opponent entered the battlefield. "You're a disgrace, Kankuro." Naruto swept his gaze to the new arrival. Standing upside down, the boy's red hair was the only feature standing out. His eyes met Naruto's. The blonde shivered. This one was different. That was the least he could tell. Observe. Observing. Maybe level 17 or higher. Hopefully not anything close to 20, though. Observation failed. Target's level is too high. Naruto's shock was almost tangible in the air. The Chunin exams were going to be wild indeed. Dash in. Yo. This chapter was certainly easier to write than the previous one. Once again, the MVP seemed to be Shadow Zabuza. Of course, Kakashi didn't only teach Naruto that missed jutsu. That wouldn't really make sense considering Naruto primarily wanted firepower in his arsenal. And Gaara's entrance. Their fight is gonna be insane. Naruto kept his gaze locked onto the red-haired boy. He tried his best not to look away. His simple, brown clothes weren't very special, but there was something ominous about the weird, peanut-shaped cocoon on his back. Of course, comparing it to a peanut wasn't really doing justice to the object. There's some sort of pressure around this guy. What is it? Naruto thought as he grimaced slightly. Ding. Warning. Bloodlust detected. That's what it was. Bloodlust. Was it some kind of ability or a technique to be honed? And if so, how does someone learn it? Or was the ability innate, something born out of the person themselves? The boy continued. To think you're out here fooling around with little children. It seems to me that you've forgotten the reason we are here. Kankuro tightened his fists, his face scrunching up in frustration. They started at first, Gaara. The kid Gaara tilted his head slightly. One more word and you're dead. The atmosphere suddenly got several degrees hotter as Gaara issued his threat. Naruto wasn't sure whether the Sungjinwoo was serious or not. But with one glance at the intensity of sweat on Kankuro's face, it was safe to assume that he was. I apologize, Gaara. It was my mistake entirely, Kankuro jabbered, his eyes cast downwards. Gaara merely nodded, before spinning down from his position to the side of Kankuro. The sand preventing the taller Genin's movement disappeared into the earth below as Kankuro let out a relieved sigh. And who are you? Gaara asked, looking somewhere behind Naruto. Naruto swiveled his head to match Gaara's line of sight, only to meet the familiar face of the sole Uchiha in Konoha. It's only polite to introduce yourself before asking someone else. Or do they not learn that in Suna? Sasuke asked, smirking as he walked towards a spot beside Naruto. Gaara showed no reaction. I'm Gaara of the desert. These are my siblings, Kankuro and Temari. Who are you? Wait, he threatened to kill his own brother? Naruto realized, eyes widening with horror. Just what kind of boy is he? I'm Sasuke Uchiha, and these are my teammates, Naruto and Sakura. The Suna shinobi didn't show any sign of recognition. Why are there Suna shinobi in Konoha land? You are our allies, but you simply can't cross borders like that, can you? Sakura asked strictly, crossing her arms together. Well, you aren't the brightest of the bunch, are you? Temari badgered, putting up an ID of sorts to the group. Were you not informed of what's happening in your own village? Sasuke and Sakura merely looked on, confused. But Naruto wouldn't let his village lose face in front of another, foreign one. Of course we know. Naruto mentioned loudly, chuckling. It's the Chunin exams, and you guys have come to compete in it. Kankuro nodded, before narrowing his eyes suspiciously, which looked odd with the paint over his face. Then how come your teammates were so surprised at our presence? It's to be expected. You guys were very early. Plus, you don't exactly look like shinobi. Naruto chastised, clearly alluding to Kankuro's strange attire. Sasuke failed to hide his laugh. Kankuro bristled angrily, before wilting at the sound of Gaara's snort. You? What's your name? Your full name? Gaara asked, ignoring the jab towards his brother. Naruto Uzumaki, at your service, Naruto said, digging his hands into his pockets. Swish. Naruto's body moved on his own as a tendril of sand moved towards him at frightening speeds, flying through the air like an arrow itself. He panted as he looked to his right, where a conjured spear of sand was only inches away from piercing into where his face once was, floating temporality before falling to the ground uselessly. What the hell is wrong with this guy? Huh, you dodged, Gaara said, sounding almost surprised. Now it will be even more satisfying to kill you in the exams. Naruto Uzumaki. Kankuro. Temari. Let's leave. Without a second of doubt, the more than eccentric trio left the premise. Sasuke grinned. The exams are certainly going to be interesting. Sakura stood frozen, stunned by the meeting. If this is how all the other genin are, how in the world will I survive? Konohamaru simply looked at his boss with awe. Boss, you're too cool. Naruto couldn't even smile at the praise. He had known Gaara was different the second he met him, having experienced firsthand the pressure of his bloodlust. It wasn't anything compared to the replica of the first Hokage he was forced to fight, but it was higher than Zabuza's before he died. And how did a child similar to Naruto's own age have such an immense pressure? The answer was with his observe. He had kept the notification to the side, making sure to remember to accept once the interaction with Gaara was over. Would player like a partial observation? Yes/no. Yes. Name, Gaara. Title, The One-Tailed Jinchuri. Occupation, Genin of Sunagakure. Level, HP, 100 out of 100. MP, 100 out of 100. Chakra, STR, Vit, Dex, Int, Whis, Luck. He was a Jinchuriki just like Naruto himself, but unlike Naruto, he wasn't kind, welcoming, or in any way merciful. Naruto shuddered. The Chunin exams are gonna be tough, alright? Yo. Naruto looked up as Kakashi issued a greeting. On top of one of the pillars on the bridge stood the silver-haired sensei. He slowly began climbing down, using the chakra technique that the three were well accustomed to by now. Naruto smirked. If he had seen that a few months ago, he would have been shocked out of his mind. It was funny how much things changed in such a short amount of time. In fact, if he never got his system, the genin shook his head. There was no point in thinking about useless ifs and other make-believe circumstances. The fact was he got the system, and he was stronger because of it. Well, it was pretty obvious by now. But you're in the Chunin exams. Congratulations, Kakashi said without a trace of enthusiasm, rubbing the back of his head. He gave the three of them each a piece of paper. These are your applications. Naruto looked at his own application with interest. Chunin exam application. Name, Naruto Uzumaki. Sensei, Kakashi Hatake. This application proves that you are hereby nominated for entering the Chunin exams after your confirmation after the successful completion of a B-rank mission assigned to your team. Naruto looked at his sensei with confusion. Why does it say the word confirmation? Shouldn't we already be in the exam? You were merely nominated for the exam. If you don't want to enter, you don't need to show up. If you want to, sign the paper and turn it in tomorrow at room 301 tomorrow. Naruto sneaked a glance at Sakura. He couldn't put it past her or blame her if she tried to skip the exam. The look of conflict on her face was transparent enough. Maybe some motivation would do. Don't worry, Sensei. All of us will be there tomorrow. You'll have 3 new Chunins on your team to keep you safe, Naruto said humorously. Sakura's head raised at the mention of all. I'm sorry, Naruto, to burst your bubble, but I don't see any of you becoming Chunin, Kakashi deadpanned, jumping onto the flat surface of the bridge. Naruto asked, baffled at his sensei's easy admittance. Kakashi raised a hand to block Sakura and Sasuke's questions. At a maximum, only 1 or 2 shinobi become Chunin each year, and that was before this whole international business started. The other villages wouldn't send any regular shinobi to represent them. They are going to send the best of their genin. There's a lot more competition this time around, with a variety of techniques you've never seen before. You can overestimate yourself if you want, but underestimating your opponent is even more dangerous. Sasuke hummed slightly in agreement. Some villages are making legendary shinobi become jonin just to teach some genin for the exams. Rumors say, well, you'll see once you start the exams. That's all for now. Naruto yelled before the jonin could leave. Wait, Sensei. What do you need us to do to become Chunin? Naruto asked desperately, eager for any kind of knowledge to increase his chances. Kakashi was right. With the number of genin attempting the exam, there was bound to be more people like Gaara out there. Hell, even Kuratsuchi was a monster. Rookie genin were fighting against people who had a year more of experience. The only thing you need to do is improve tremendously, and I mean at a very fast rate. Ha. Ha 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 ha. Heh. Naruto couldn't stop the chuckle from escaping his mouth. Kakashi and the rest of Team 7 looked at him amusedly. Improve? At a fast rate? If there was one thing Naruto could do quickly, it was improving. Naruto looked at his stats idly as he stood in front of the door of room 301. Name: Naruto Uzumaki. Title: Stormbringer. Occupation: Genin of Konoha. Level: LV10. HP: 100 out of 100. MP: 100 out of 100. Chakra: 2000/2000. STR: 10. Vit: 12. Dex: 9. Int: 6. Wis: 4. Luck: 2. Current skills: Shadow Clone Jutsu LVL4. Shadow Extraction LVL1. Class: Necromancer. Attribute points: 0. His increase to level 10 wasn't a huge surprise. Having fought Zenki and doing multiple quests on the side, Naruto received a whole lot of experience from those situations alone. And that was without even mentioning the increase in his stats due to the amount of training Kakashi had put him through. Learning 2 jutsus was certainly an experience to thank, for it had helped his chakra control and his discipline, which somehow worked to help him level up faster in his opinion. When he leveled up twice, he had put his points in strength, intelligence, and dexterity. He ignored vitality considering the number of times the number grew due to his personal training, though that number decreased the last few weeks. Intelligence clearly had the biggest effect on Naruto's mindset, which was why he focused on that next. It didn't particularly change his personality per se, and neither did it suddenly give him the vocabulary of a seasoned author. However, he found himself suddenly able to better articulate the words he already knew, as well as change how he thought of things. As he thought of the things flying freely in his rather occupied head, his deduction skills were tingling. Currently at level 3, the skill wasn't very useful. Or rather, it showed how little he actually tried to deduce things. But Naruto trusted his gut feelings. He looked over at Sasuke and Sakura, who seemed to come to the same realization as him. Sasuke smirked. It's the wrong floor, isn't it? Seems so. The Genjutsu started to fade away, revealing the sign to be 201. Naruto sighed. How would that manage to trick a genin at all? And so they went to the floor above. The walk wasn't particularly long, but neither was it really pleasing. Team 7 quickly made their way into the real room 301. Into a room completely jam-packed with shinboi. Naruto didn't recognize a single person. The stares of each of the genin quickly focused on the incoming Team 7, who tried their best not to wilt at all the attention. Sakura failed completely, blushing in nervousness, which made sense, considering she wasn't really used to it all. Sasuke, as the only Uchiha left in Konoha, was also used to the attention. Naruto was used to it for darker reasons. As the container of the Kyuubi, he received a lot of looks in his days, which were usually bad rather than good. Wait, was that? Short, black hair, and regal attitude? Kurotsuchi was in the exam, along with her teammates, Ibuki, and some random person he didn't know. But how? They had completed the mission and the IWA team hadn't, meaning the IWA team effectively failed their own task. Thus, they shouldn't be in this room right now, Naruto thought, as he watched the girl talk animatedly with her team. She was a princess, however. It wasn't entirely impossible that her family pulled some ropes to get her into the exams, or that there was some sort of backup test for teams which happened to fail the qualifying exams. But it didn't matter. The only negative that came out of this was that there was one more tough opponent in the exam. Of course, there was Gaara. Even in the presence of the rather large crowd, he wasn't easily missed either, partly due to his flaming red hair, which stood out like an apple hanging on a tree. IWA. Suna, Kumo, Kiri. It certainly was an international Chunin exam. It also made absolutely zero sense considering a lot of these villages were currently not allies, and even worse, hated each other to the guts. And even worse, IWA was present inside of Konoha itself. Naruto-san. Naruto tried not to groan as he heard the familiar voice. Rock Lee stood proud as he shouted out to Naruto, letting everyone else in the room hear in the process. I challenge you to a duel. Why did it have to be me? Dash in. I'll start with the questions this time. There's one. A duel, right now? Naruto asked incredulously, eyeing everyone staring at him. Of course. Lee stated. I fought Sasuke-san already, and that day I did not really want to fight you as well since he needed some medical attention. Naruto tried to think through the situation clearly. He could rightfully just reject Lee's offer and prevent a plenitude of problems from arising. However, he did also want to see how much he had improved since Wave as well. His fight with Zenki was not a standard battle for sure, and his use of Shadow Zabuza was concerning as well. He needed to see how much he could do without his special abilities, which he couldn't use publicly in the Chunin exams for sure. An ability that could quite literally raise the dead and be used to his will certainly would not go well with the rest of the world. If people killed and stole children for a byakugan, what would they do for his ability, which they would assume was a special Kekai Genkai? But something else made him want to take the challenge even more. Ding! New quest. Rock, paper. Lee created. Quest details. Accept Lee's challenge and spar. Quest rewards. EXP 1000. Increase Taijutsu level by 2. Lee's respect. Failure. Lose all hopes of becoming a Taijutsu master. Does player accept the quest? Yes/no. And so, Naruto accepted. Sakura rolled her eyes. That's the old Naruto I know. Well, we can't fight here, can we? Let's go to one of the open corridors. There's a lot of space available, Naruto said, gesturing for them to move. Lee waved to his teammates, Neji and Tintin. The former simply scoffed, while the latter waved back. Well, he hasn't changed a bit. Naruto thought amusedly. Sasuke, Sakura, I'll be back in a few minutes, Naruto told his teammates. Soon enough, they were in the open with no spectators. You can use any jutsu of your wish, Naruto-san. Whoever is knocked unconscious or admits defeat is the loser. Are you ready? Lee asked, already in his iconic pose. Any jutsu? I really don't want to make this place a mess. Let's see. Lee is a taijutsu expert, meaning I have to beat him with other methods. Using Sasuke's taijutsu would be practically wishing for death, seeing how Sasuke fared last time with his fight against Lee. I need to outsmart him somehow. Naruto jumped a few steps backward. With a nod, he beckoned for the fight to start. Lee was fast. Seeing it with his eyes and actually experiencing it were two different things. Naruto ducked as a flying kick went to his head, before blocking a straight punch to the chest with his arms crossed together. The impact forced the blonde backward, who grunted slightly at the force. Naruto launched forwards, looking to start an offense of his own. But it was certainly hard, considering just how agile his opponent was. The Jinchuriki tried to land a blow to Lee's gut, who merely sidestepped with his hands behind his back and then attempted a wild uppercut to the jaw. Lee lunged forward, weaving past the uppercut and landing a sound haymaker on Naruto's stomach. Ugh! Naruto recoiled in pain but didn't let himself lose focus. A few seconds later, he was kicked back several meters, coughing slightly as he felt a bruise forming near his chest. That's gonna heal. I shouldn't worry about it. He didn't really like that the QB was inside of him, but if it came with such advantages as regeneration, it didn't really matter in the end. Naruto could not count on one hand how many times he had won a fight or even survived because of the Nine-Tails healing capabilities. Right now, he had no way of beating Lee if he continued how he was. The boy was too fast and too strong to be caught by a genin with a year less of experience. But Naruto had to try. His pride demanded such. He closed his eyes and began to truly concentrate. Lee trudged forward, uncaring of what Naruto did. Bright blue eyes snapped open. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto called out, his voice echoing slightly in the corridor. Lee had the decency to look surprised as copies of Naruto appeared throughout the area before his expression hardened once again. Simple clones will not work to help you, Naruto-san. It wasn't very surprising that Lee did not know what shadow clones were, seeing how it was forbidden jutsu in Konoha. Other than Kakashi, Naruto didn't know who else could create shadow clones. and that improved their effectiveness even more. The element of surprise was a technique that Kakashi had drilled into the team, stating that even the weakest of ninjas could defeat a Jonin if the situation was in their favor. Activate Uchiha Taijutsu. Activating. Skill. Uchiha Clan Taijutsu, LVL3 activated. Usage drains 15 MP points each minute. User can use this skill for 1 minute without draining MP. The clones engaged their enemy. Naruto could feel Lee's surprise as they began to physically attack him. He probably expected the clones to disappear after the lightest of touches, but was confused after he found that it was not the case. But that did not really matter. Even though they could do real damage, they were not as durable as the real Naruto. The difference was evident to the seasoned genin. The clones disappeared one by one, but at that point, Naruto was finished with his next set of seals. Substitution. He swapped with one of his clones. Naruto completely tanked the swat to his right shoulder as Lee's eyes widened in surprise. With a loud roar, he rushed at Lee with murderous intent. A satisfying smack was heard as Naruto managed to finally hit a solid, clean strike on the green-clad boy. Naruto huffed smugly. Yes, but the fight was not over. And according to Lee, it hadn't even begun. Lee charged once again, but this time, he was even faster. Naruto gasped as he felt a river of pain flood him. Lee had kicked him right on the chin, sending him high into the air. How is that even possible? Front lotus. Naruto attempted to land accordingly back down, but found that he couldn't even move while airborne due to Lee clamping down on his arms and legs. When had he come behind him? Bandages started to creep around his body, trapping his body entirely while in the air. Summon Shadow Zabu. Naruto stopped his summoning prematurely. He couldn't just reveal an ability right now, just before the Chunin exams. He looked at his upcoming demise and winced. This was going to hurt. That's enough, Lee. Bandages loosened immediately, freeing Naruto's legs to move. With his frantically moving legs, he managed to quickly gain his position in the air and land on both his legs. He had thankfully avoided a massive injury. What was Lee thinking? Of course, Naruto would probably heal back, but Lee didn't really know that, did he? That voice was awfully similar, though. Naruto moved his gaze until he found the source of the voice that had inadvertently saved him. And they found a giant turtle? Or was it a tortoise? He had never been able to tell the difference. Lee kneeled in front of the turtle as if it was some kind of deity, his face apologetic and full of worry. I'm sorry. Please, I only wanted to test my capabilities. The turtle scowled, the expression looking comical on the reptile's face. That move is forbidden for a reason, Lee. I am gravely disappointed by your lack of thinking ahead. A fight isn't just about bronze, unfortunately, or your sensei would have been the strongest in our village long ago. For your lack of obedience, a fit punishment will be assigned. Naruto just looked at the conversation blankly. This had to be a joke. I promise. I'll face the consequences without hesitation, Lee swore solemnly, putting a fist to his heart. The turtle nodded. All right then. I believe your sensei wants to talk with you. Smoke spun on the turtle's large shell as a large man appeared on top. With his distinctly green suit, bushy eyebrows, and exuberant pose, it was obvious who it was. Lee's sensei, Guy. Guy sensei. Lee shouted. Lee rushed to his mentor, who stood still and waited. Blood splattered from the boy's mouth as Guy punched him straight in the face, knocking him back for all it was worth. Naruto stood, shocked at the sudden turn of events. Lee, I'm very disappointed in you. If I didn't come any sooner. Guy shook his head. Well, let's not talk about that. I'll make this quick since both of you need to leave soon. The first examination will be starting. Once the exam is done, I'll make you run around Konoha 100 laps. Lee grinned widely, putting a thumbs up. Sure, Guy-sensei. The two hugged each other for eternity, or that was what Naruto assumed happened. He had left the moment Guy had mentioned the Chunin exams. How did I manage to get so distracted? Naruto thought bemusedly. Hopefully, I didn't miss anything if I did. I don't even want to imagine Sasuke's or Sakura's reaction. Naruto-san, please wait a second. Lee shouted from behind him. Naruto waited for the boy to catch up. What is it? The exam is going to start soon. Don't worry, Guy-sensei told me there is still some time left. We have 6 to 10 minutes before it starts. Actually, I wanted to speak to you about something. Naruto was confused. What's there to speak about? He nodded for Lee to continue. During the fight, as I used the front lotus, I noticed something strange. I'm sure it was the case, however, as I'm pretty good at inferring things. You seem to be holding something back for whatever reason. Naruto-san, Lee said quietly, walking beside the blonde. The blonde was slightly impressed. Was it the brief moment of hesitation that set him off? Either way, it didn't matter. Naruto had nothing to say back because what Lee said was true. Lee rightfully took his lack of response as confirmation. So I was right. I won't judge you for holding back against me, since I've done the same thing. But I urge you to not try to do this during the exams. Especially against me of all people. Holding back against an equally strong opponent is considered an insult for me and many others. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for accepting my spar. Naruto wasn't sure why, but he started to feel guilty all the same. Lee headed off first, saying goodbye, leaving Naruto his own thoughts. The blonde could only sigh. There's really no way to show my necromancy, is there? But if he had to fight Lee, Naruto promised himself that he would try his damn hardest even without his shadows for help. He made his way back to the room, to the rest of the teams gathered. The villages seemed to have naturally separated themselves, each of them in their own corner of the room. Naruto made his way to the Konoha section, eager to meet all of his friends from the academy. Inside the Konoha section, all of the ninja teams were separated by year groups from the academy. Yo! Naruto greeted. There was Shikamaru and the rest of his team, Kiba and the rest of his, and Naruto's own. Oh, Naruto is here. You look a bit different, Kiba announced, looking at him up and down. Naruto looked at himself doubtfully. Did he really? Maybe he grew an inch or less. Just kidding. Haha. You should have seen your face, the Inuzuka said, laughing uncontrollably. Naruto felt his eye twitch. Well, you don't seem to have changed much either. Still as stubborn as ever, huh? Kiba froze, before nodding smugly. That's right. Shikamaru hit him lightly on the neck. It wasn't a compliment, idiot. Hey, Naruto. Shikamaru, I'm surprised to see you here, to be honest. I thought you wouldn't have wanted to compete in the Chunin exams, Naruto mentioned, looking at the spiky-haired Chunin curiously. You'd be right. Actually, Shikamaru admitted, scratching his head. But I don't think Ino or Choji would have let me live if I didn't come. You bet. Ino shouted from a different conversation with Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto almost felt bad for the Uchiha. Almost. He looked at the rest of the teams. Yo, Hinata and Shino. Naruto was tempted to use Observe on all of the ninjas, but he had already done that a month prior. Hinata had improved at drastic bounds, but still wasn't at the footsteps of the heights he was currently at. Shino was at a similar rate of improvement, but was probably stronger than Hinata if she did not use her byakugan. Or, that was what he assumed from their individual stats. Shino's bugs weren't a well-known secret within Konoha, and his last name would probably be recognized by some older ninjas from other villages. They all knew how deadly his bugs could be. Hinata stuttered, as usual, red creeping up to her cheeks. Hi, Naruto-kun. It's nice seeing you again, Naruto-san, Shino said. His voice wasn't very quiet, but it still sounded like a whisper for some reason. The rest of the conversation went on similarly, with everyone running some sort of small talk here or there. 9 rookies straight from the academy. It's certainly a rare sight. Naruto's ears perked at the new voice. The tall boy looked unusual, to say the least. Longer, silver hair was tied up in a ponytail, and circular glasses surrounding his eyes. He looked like the typical smart student back at the academy. He was from Konoha, at least. He continued with his haughty voice. If I'm being honest, you guys seem kind of naive. You really shouldn't be taking these exams so lightly. And who are you? Ino asked, annoyed. Kabuto. Trust me on this one. Don't underestimate everyone around you. It's my 7th time taking the exam, and I still haven't become a Chunin. Here, take a look at these ninja info cards. Naruto eyed the pieces of paper Kabuto brought out of his pocket. They were bright orange and had some kind of kanji inscribed onto them. These cards hold a plenitude of information about a whole lot of things. The number of participants, strengths, and weaknesses of some of the contestants, and other stuff. Naruto just eyed the person in front of him warily. To have so much information, he wasn't just a regular shinobi, was he? Being a seventh-timer for the Chunin exams didn't seem to deter his other talents, but it appeared to be incredibly useful, and he wasn't going to waste the opportunity to gauge his opponent's abilities. The main goal for all of this was to become a Chunin at the end of the exams. After all, the spectacled genin was practically begging for them to ask him about someone or something. Maybe to build some trust? Naruto stopped himself. He had begun being too paranoid these days. Naruto stepped forward. Can you tell me about Gaara? He's a genin from Suna. Kabuto smirked before shuffling through his cards wildly. He finally plucked one out, before he began to read out the details one by one. Gaara. Huh? Well, he's quite the capable one, isn't he? 8 C-ranked missions, and 1 B-ranked mission even before the entrance one. Not bad for a genin. There's not much information on his strengths, unfortunately. As for his feats, he has returned from all of his missions without a single scratch. Naruto listened intently. He had learned nothing from that, other than the fact the boy was even more of a monster than he expected him to be. He tuned the others out as Sasuke began asking about Lee. The Chunin exams were going to be even tougher than he thought they would. If they were any more monsters like Lee and Gaara, this would not end up well in the slightest. And that was without counting Neji. Shut your worthless mouths up, all of you. Naruto flinched a bit at the loud noise and explosion of smoke. The smoke settled out, revealing an entire gang of shinobi for everyone to see. The name is Marino Ibiki, the examiner for the initial test. Marino Ibiki was a tall man, who expressed an aura of confidence and intimidation. His face was scarred gruesomely, and the dark trench coat that he wore didn't do much to change his impression. Everyone please submit your applications and sit down at the seat number mentioned. Naruto slowly did so, making sure to eye everyone he saw. He tried not to look too long at Kuretsuchi, who was the only foreign genin that he actually recognized. He wondered what exactly they were going to do for the first test. Looking at the tables and the classroom, it was almost like they were going to write a test of sorts. Naruto froze. No, they won't make us write a test, right? Naruto thought, chuckling nervously. He had invested a lot of points into intelligence, but that didn't make him learn new information at all. It had only changed his way of thinking a bit and improved his level of understanding. Naruto looked at the students beside him, Hinata and some random genin from Otogakure. If it was a test, why make them sit so close to each other? Ibiki explained the rules of the exam even further, talking about the point reductions and furthermore the team reductions made if someone happened to cheat or attempt to do so. The Chunins surrounding them were there just to monitor each student and to call them out if they were cheating. And then the final point. If anyone was to lose 10 points, the entire team would be disqualified. Naruto laughed hysterically in his head. Of course, we will all be disqualified. He could tell Sakura and Sasuke were thinking similar thoughts if the stunned looks on their faces were any indication. He continued to brood as the papers were passed out. They had an hour to solve only 10 questions, which wasn't a good sign at all. Every student knows that it's the tests with fewer questions to be more worried about, as they had the most effect on your grades overall. Naruto went through the questions one by one. Maybe at least one of them would be easy, right? Question 1. Assume a kunai was thrown at an enemy shinobi perched on a tree at a distance of 20 meters away. The angle between the kunai, with respect to the ground, was 20 degrees. If the shinobi has the standard speed of a Chunin, at what angle and velocity should a second kunai be thrown to hit the enemy? You may assume some circumstances for yourself as long as they are realistic. Naruto felt his eyes bulging out of their sockets. What kind of question even was that? Was that even possible to solve? What even was the use of being able to solve such a problem on the battlefield? Could someone casually calculate it all in the blink of an eye in the middle of a fight? Shaking his head, Naruto went to the next questions. They were all the same. He tried not to bang his head on the table in frustration. No, I have to think through this. These are questions I don't think even Sakura could solve confidently. If she can't, then most of the people in the room can't either. Naruto's eyes widened in realization. Why does cheating only cost 2 marks? Shouldn't it result in disqualification? And why are the seats so close together? It's almost like they made it easier to cheat. Wait, they want us to cheat without being caught. The ability to do things secretly is a staple of all shinobi. But then came the next problem. Sasuke had the sharingan, both Hinata and Neji had their byakugan, and the others had special abilities of their own. He did not have any special abilities that could help him cheat without having one of the proctors realize it immediately. As he thought about that, Chunin teams were being eliminated one by one. Hinata seemed to understand his predicament. Looking ahead, she slightly tipped her paper so that it was visible for Naruto to see some of the answers. Apparently, Hinata was smarter than she let on, as she already had 4 or 5 of the questions filled out. The temptation was there, and it was begging him to look. An invisible force was pulling his head towards the paper even as he tried to look away. "Naruto-kun, copy these answers," Hinata whispered as softly as possible, which wasn't very different from her regular voice. Okay, maybe it was, but to the blonde it felt like such. With the number of people leaving already, there's no point in attempting the risk. I wouldn't be surprised if Hinata and I have already lost some points by now. No, I need to refuse. I have to wait for the last question. He shook his head slightly, before looking back at the paper. She must have gotten the message by the way she shuffled her paper back to a normal position. 40 minutes passed, each second a tantalizing wait for the final question. The 10th question will now be announced. The final rule for the 10th question was even more horrifying to hear. Naruto sweated as he felt the pressure build. Should he accept or reject the question now? Considering he did not write a single answer, it was only expected for him to leave. That left only one crazy option. Naruto raised his hand. Before you say the final question, I need to go to the restroom, please. He could feel the judging stares of all the genin on his back. Kankuro had done the same thing several minutes before. "Proctor, take this boy to the restrooms," Ibiki said disdainfully. Naruto was placed in cuffs and dragged along with ropes. The cuffs were probably in place to prevent him from doing any jutsus, which was an appropriate enough handicap. The blonde made his way into the restroom and to one of the stalls. They were not very well maintained nor clean, but it would do for now. He didn't come there for such a purpose, after all. "Make it quick, brat. You've wasted enough as it is." The proctor barked from the corner of the restroom. He was attempting a wild risk, but it was certainly better than the expulsion of him and both his teammates. And for it to work, he would have to be willing to do something dirty. Naruto took a deep breath. Observe. Observing. Observation successful. Name: Yuta Hanami. Title: The Textbook Genius. Occupation: Chunin of Konoha. Level: LV 13. HP: 100 out of 100. MP: 100 out of 100. Chakra: 125 out of 125. STR: 7. Vit: 6. Dex: 8. Int: 10. Wis: 5. Luck: 5. The Chunin that brought him out was incredibly weak. Naruto was surprised at just how weak Yuta was. It brought up the question of what the Chunin in exams exactly tested if someone of a mere level 13 was able to become Chunin. Naruto knew he was not that high-leveled either, but his level was completely skewed by the number of abilities the system had given him was not taken into consideration. His real level would be at the very least 5 or 4 higher. The genin was also very lucky for Yuta to be considered the textbook genius. He zipped up his pants. The cuffs would prevent jutsus, all right, but Naruto's abilities never needed his hands, did they? Summon Shadow Zabuza. Shadows arose from behind the Chunin, who stood motionless as the atrocity behind him continued to grow. Wispy darkness materialized into human form, and the dark form of Kubikiribocho made its place on the proctor's neck. Yuta froze as he felt the familiar feeling of steel pressed against his neck. Naruto glared at the Chunin menacingly as Yuta dropped the leash to the cuffs in shock. What are? Shout, move, or try anything and I'll kill you right here and now, Naruto interrupted coldly. You can't. You and your team will be disqualified. Yuta whispered in fright. Naruto chuckled slowly. It was an incredibly odd sound to hear from the small boy, which made it all the more terrifying. That was the effect he was going for. After all, Naruto took a step closer to the sweating man. The deal is simple. Tell me all the answers to the exam, or else you die. Why you won't hurt me? Do you not know who I am? Naruto asked, grinning evilly. I'm the container of the Kyuubi. Even now, it's begging me to kill you, tear you apart, and feed on your flesh. Should I answer it? Yuta Hanami? Yuta gasped at the mention of his name. Please, I can't willingly let you cheat. They'll kick me out. How is this willingly? I'm forcing you to tell me, Yuta-san. It's practically cheating just like the others. This jutsu of mine, it's not an illusion. It's a curse. Mention that I cheated during the test, and that sword will come down. I don't care whether I do it in the middle of the classroom, and neither does the Nine Tails. Now, will you reveal the answers or not? Naruto focused all of his intent on Yuta, willing him to answer. Ding! New skill achieved. Bloodlust, LVL1. Yuta nodded hesitatingly. Naruto smirked. That wasn't so hard, was it? Now, the second question was especially hard. All of you passed the exam. Naruto tried not to yell in frustration as the real intent behind the mission was revealed by Ibiki. According to the rules, he didn't even have to write anything, and he still would have passed. Regardless, he had passed the test. Naruto walked out of the classroom, sending a thumbs up to Yuta, who refused to acknowledge his existence. Well, I couldn't really expect anything else. Phew. Acting like a psychopathic murderer really takes a toll on me. The first exam was over, and he had passed with flying colors and threats. Ibiki began another long speech to inspire the students, but was interrupted as a ball of purple flew through the glass window and into the class. Fragments of glass erupted onto the floor before the purple figure slowly unveiled herself. I'm Anko Mitarashi, the chief exam officer for the second examination of the Chunin exams. This is going to be annoying. Ding. Skill tree has been unlocked. Naruto looked at the floating screen next to him. Skill tree? What the hell is this? Choose between the two skills shown. Enhanced Eyesight LVL1. Iron Skin LVL1. Naruto wasn't sure what to think when the purple-haired woman came out of nowhere, but he was certainly surprised. After introducing herself quite terribly, Anko led all of the Genins to Training Ground 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death. It looked like a dreadful place, with tall, irregular trees that looked like the perfect hiding spots for all sorts of creatures, or other Genin, Naruto noted with a grimace. Someone could die in that forest, and no one would even notice. The Forest of Death has a reason for its infamous moniker. The first exam was a boring, lame old written test. Am I right? Don't worry, there's going to be a lot more action this time around, Anko said excitedly. Naruto was definitely more worried now. His thoughts wavered to Gaara, who he definitely couldn't fight evenly with his current abilities. A psychopathic Jinchuriki wreaking havoc in a place like the Forest of Death, where he was practically allowed to kill other Genin, was surely not going to end well. Either way, Naruto would try his best to avoid conflict with the Jinchuriki for as long as possible until he got much stronger. Then came the real decision to make. Choose between the two skills shown. Enhanced Eyesight LVL1. Iron Skin LVL1. Naruto had been waiting for something like this to pop up ever since he found out the system gave him separate advantages other than manually increasing his stats. Enhanced Eyesight? Iron Skin? I mean, I can guess what they mean from the names themselves. Enhanced Eyesight probably referred to a better range of eyesight, which seemed useful in a sense. Iron Skin most likely made him much more durable for a brief amount of time. Both of them clearly used his MP considering they weren't really anything related to chakra if he was getting the skill immediately. Looking at his options, Naruto was definitely leaning towards Iron Skin considering his own fighting style was mostly fist-to-fist based. Even in terms of the team he was in, Enhanced Eyesight had no use when his own teammate had a Sharingan of all things. Even though that was true, Naruto definitely needed more information before he could viably choose an option. Enhanced Eyesight LVL1. Info. While skill is activated, the user has a greater understanding of the environment. The range of the user's eyesight is drastically improved as well as the overall perception of moving targets. Okay, so based on what Sasuke has told me about the Sharingan, it's practically a much weaker version of his Kekkei Genkai. Naruto thought to himself, weighing the words that were shown on the screen. Iron Skin LVL1. Info. While skill is activated, the user's skin attains attributes of iron, making it much more durable and resistant to all sorts of attacks. Naruto was practically salivating at the idea of having both these abilities at once, and quickly closed his mouth as he saw other genin looking at him weirdly. While having both was a nice thing to think about, the system had only given him one option. And looking at his options, Naruto had a clear answer. Choose Iron Skin. Ding! New skill achieved. Iron Skin, LVL1. Usage takes 10 MP and lasts for 1 minute before a skill cooldown of 10 minutes applies. Iron Skin was the skill that seemed to match his current abilities and skill set the most. Having something like Iron Skill would be incredibly useful while fighting people like Zenki, who was durable without the use of any skills. He glanced around himself. With the monsters surrounding him, Iron Skin would be extremely useful in the near future. Anko had finished her intimation speech and was starting the instructions for the next exam before she was interrupted by someone else. All right. Can you just start the next exam already? Naruto and the rest of the crowd swerved their necks at great speeds at the girl who said that out loud. With short, green hair and a tan complexion, the genin in question looked very exotic. Anko laughed loudly, then threw a kunai at Dazzling, so fast that Naruto could barely even keep up. The girl caught the kunai with her bare hand, before rolling her eyes in disbelief. Anko looked slightly impressed but schooled down her features right after. The proctor for the second exam crossed her arms. Kids these days, so impatient. Do you think I want to explain this much to y'all? Of course not. But someone has to lay down the ground rules, and that, unfortunately, has to be me. So, on to the rules of the second exam. Then came an explanation of the second stage of the Chunin exams, which only told Naruto that the exams seemed to want conflicts for whatever reason. The goal of the mission was to enter the center of the forest with both the Heaven Scroll and Earth Scroll, which sounded easy enough on its own. However, each team only had a single scroll. That meant only half of the teams would end up qualifying for the third stage of the exams, and to qualify, you had to be aggressive. There really was no best game plan, except to avoid being seen first. Anko raised a pile of papers. You'll have to sign this waiver, just for some assurances. The group of genin slowly moved towards the proctor, who put the sheets onto a table in front of them. Hey, Blondie, move aside. Kuratsuchi made her way past Naruto as she went for the flyers. Naruto was slightly bummed that he was now the same height as the girl when he was around a foot taller in his Ruji form. For a second, he thought she would recognize him for whatever reason, but he pushed the stray thought away. It probably wouldn't do well for her to realize he was Ruji anyways, seeing how he had practically robbed of her mission entirely by himself. Naruto and the rest of Team 7 signed their papers with a spare pen that Sakura had. It seemed that not everyone had a pen, however, as others began to ask Naruto for the pen as well. The green-haired girl was the first person to ask. Oi, can I borrow a pen? Naruto looked into her strange, bright orange eyes and handed it over. Sure. Curious, he cast an observe at the genin who was able to catch the kunai that Anko had thrown so easily. Observe. Observing. Observation failed. No. Target's level is too high. Not again. Would player like a partial observation? Yes/no. Yes. Name, Fu. Title, The Seven-Tailed Jinchuriki. Occupation, Genin of Takigakure. Level, HP, 100 out of 100. MP, 100 out of 100. Chakra, STR, Vit, Dex, Int, Whis, Luck. Naruto just stood, shell-shocked at the turn of events. When he had cast the observe, he had assumed that the girl Fu would be a rather strong genin, somewhat similar to Rock Lee if not less. Who would have thought that she was a Jinchuriki just like him and Gaara? There was not one, not two, but 3 Jinchuriki in the Chunin exams. Counting Kuratsuchi in the pile, there were more than a few monsters in the exams. It would be tough winning it all, and thus, only one solution came to mind. If they were all monsters, Naruto just needed to become a bigger one. Dash. Naruto handed over the Heaven Scroll to Sasuke, who he trusted a lot more with items of such high importance. So, do we even have a game plan? Naruto asked the rest of his teammates. Yes. Our main goal is to enter the center with both of the scrolls, correct? Meaning right now, we need the Earth Scroll. Therefore, we need to scout our enemies beforehand and find out who has the Earth and Heaven Scroll each. There would be no point in fighting a group with a Heaven Scroll. After all, Sasuke said, putting a hand on his chin. Naruto, we're going to take full advantage of your clones? Naruto nodded. It was a good start, sure, but depended entirely on the strength of their opponents to actually work. If the opponent groups that had the Heaven Scroll happened to have someone like Gaara, who most likely was already killing people to the fullest by now, the plan would completely backfire. We can't have them recognize Naruto either, Sakura mentioned with a thoughtful glance towards the blonde. The clones can hinge themselves as something else while they scout, and come back to me for reporting, Naruto supplied. Putting his hands together, he summoned 12 shadow clones exactly, sending them each in different directions. The clones hinged themselves as some random civilian kids Naruto had remembered seeing, to prevent anyone from targeting a blonde brat who was in the forest with them. Naruto looked at the sun, tilting his head up. All right, I think it's time we... Ding. Warning. Bloodlust detected. Naruto paused. What happened, Naruto? Sakura asked anxiously. Sasuke looked alerted as well. Naruto didn't have any time to notice that his eyes were already red. Wind erupted with a shriek from the treetops above as Naruto yelled move, for the entire world to hear. The cyclone of wind scratched and tore at his clothes, but fortunately was mostly avoided by his early understanding of the situation. Once the jutsu was finished, Naruto scanned his surroundings. Is everyone okay? Both Sakura and Sasuke shouted affirmatively, despite the wrecked trees and earth around. On top of one tree stood a masked genin, his spiky blonde hair and pale green coat easily visible in the scattered tree line. Based on his overall appearance, and of course, the headband he wore, it was clear the guy was from Amagekure. He then went into a steady crouch, aiming his stance straight towards an unsuspecting Sakura. Sakura, move. Naruto ushered immediately, running towards his pink-haired teammate. I didn't think we would get attacked so quickly, Naruto thought incredulously. I need to end this off quickly. Sasuke seemed to be thinking the same thing, for he attempted to butt in as well. Sakura quickly sidestepped the attempt on her life, her reflexes much faster from the hell of training she was put through by Kakashi. I might not be as strong as Naruto or Sasuke right now, but I can hold my own as well. Naruto dashed towards their enemy with great speed. He deflected the shuriken thrown at him with his kunai, before lunging for the attack. In a taijutsu battle, there were many who could beat Naruto, but there were also many who couldn't. Before the Amagekure genin could even respond properly, Naruto feinted a hook kick to the face, before using his other leg to latch onto the genin's heel and bring him down to the ground instantly. It was an efficient if not a cheap move to make, but that was what ninja did. Naruto brought his kunai and stabbed it into the knee of the opposing genin, who erupted into water. Damn it! Naruto yelled in frustration. To further the annoyance, his pants were completely wet. Sakura looked equally pissed but managed to quell it down. Well, we couldn't be the only ones who decided to use clones. Well, it's good that they weren't shadow clones, at the very least. Naruto thought, trying to be optimistic about the whole thing. Let's not dwell on this too much. We need to move as quickly as possible. It's possible our location has been revealed from all the ruckus, and we definitely don't want any more attention on us. We can find a place to set up a tent as well, Sasuke said, attempting to reel the group back into action. Naruto, did the clones reveal anything? Not yet, apparently. That was neither a bad sign nor a good sign. It meant that there weren't many opponents nearby, which meant that there was less of a chance of them finding an enemy to beat and gain an Earth Scroll. Team 7 walked for another 20 or so minutes, trying to cover as much distance as quietly as possible. His clones had yet to disappear, which was starting to become very, very unusual. You would have thought that a dozen clones he had sent would have found anyone by now. The walk was uneventful, except for the few large creatures that showed up from time to time, but was easily scared by a few fire jutsus that Sasuke threw at them. And then, it began. Ding! Warning! Extreme bloodlust detected. Naruto's blood froze. Guys, there's... An explosion rang through the forest, launching Naruto and every nearby obstacle with absolute force, bringing trees out of the soil and breaking boulders into pebbles with a single shockwave. He felt his body fly like a ragdoll into the air, before falling onto the grassy forest floor painfully. He rolled and tumbled with the resulting momentum, before finally stopping at a tree that gave a helping hand and stopped his movement. Naruto stood up with a dizzied look at his surroundings. He needed to get back to the others. Whatever was facing them at that time was far different from anything they had ever faced. The sheer bloodlust radiating from that person was something Naruto had never experienced in his life. SSSSS. His eyes widened. In front of him was a huge snake the width of a train, but not as long. Its green, scaly skin and reptilian eyes were a terrifying sight to behold. Naruto gulped as he faced the reptile. It lunged with another spine-trembling hiss, missing its target scarcely as Naruto jumped into the air and landed on the snake's back. The blonde tried to dig his kunai into the snake's skin for some kind of leverage, only to find that it was almost impenetrable to get through, and his attack barely left a scratch on the animal. He dodged another strike from the back, the snake's tail not willing to leave itself so vulnerable like that. The blonde eventually had to leave the snake's body entirely. Any attempt to try and balance on the creature's slippery, scaly skin was to no avail. With every second that time passed by, his teammates were in more and more danger. He needed to find a way to quickly get rid of the snake. And he had just the idea. Summon Shadow Zabuza. The person in question appeared in a swirl of darkness beside him, as stern as ever. Again? Naruto winced, knowing that would happen. I know I'm relying on you a lot, but I seriously need to get rid of this wretched animal. Plus, I don't really need you, just the sword. Sure, but make it quick. And you better not call me for another week, brat. Of course. Naruto lied through his teeth. There was no way he wasn't going to summon Zabuza again for an entire week. Zabuza tossed him the sword. Normally, this would have been a breach of tradition to do. But considering I'm already dead, I don't really care too much anymore. Awesome. Naruto caught the black Kabikuribocho with care, the large sword requiring 2 hands from Naruto to properly use. He grinned widely at the incoming snake. You shouldn't have done this, poor snake. It's time for execution. Naruto exclaimed loudly, clutching the sword and bending his knees. He pushed with all of his might, over the snake's fangs and near its head. With a heave, he brought the sword down onto the snake's head. The metal cleaved through the snake's skin like butter, beheading the reptile in a single stroke of metal. It was a gory sight. Red blood and snake vessels blew out from the disconnect in the snake's body, covering Naruto with blood as well. The genin brushed the blood away from his face with his hand, planting it into his hair. Listen, Naruto. Naruto immediately snapped to attention. Was that the first time Zabuza had called him by his real name? He normally just used brat or kid, which always managed to irk him for whatever reason. Zabuza looked very serious. The snake summon is a technique not known by many. To the rest of the world, only 2 people currently know it. But, I believe, only one of those 2 would use it to kill genin. And if what I'm thinking is true, you and your teammates are in a whole heap of trouble. Who is it? Orochimaru of the Sannin. Sasuke grunted and panted in pain as he felt the blood from his thigh run down his leg. He had planted the kunai without a second thought and was facing the consequences now. Fire style. Art of the Phoenix Flower. The raven-haired boy yelled as he went through the hand signs at a record pace. Multiple balls of fire launched themselves at the pale, snake man, who twisted and turned through the jutsu, not allowing a single hair to be burnt by the bright orange fire. This guy, he's not like anything that I've ever met. It's obvious that I'm being toyed with, but why? What does he have to gain from keeping me alive? Sasuke thought with a frown. The fear and adrenaline in his body were the only things keeping him going at that point in time. Everything else was secondary. He was going to survive this, by any means necessary. He looked at Sakura beside him, who was clearly shivering in fright. Her eyes were devoid of all emotions, except dread. I could use some help from Naruto right now. Sasuke launched backwards, throwing his ninja wire with abandon towards the man, who didn't even flinch at the attack. The wire surrounded the enemy, catching onto his body. Sasuke caught the end of the wire with his mouth and immediately held up a hand sign, making the thin, chakra-conductive wire erupt into a line of flames. Sakura's eyes widened with hope as the damage seemed to have been dealt. And it all did absolutely nothing. The man was back in full form, standing still on the branch, smirking evilly. "What's someone like you doing in the Chunin exams?" "You're definitely not a genin," Sasuke murmured, trying to stall as much time as possible. The answer that the man gave him made Sasuke wish he hadn't asked the question in the first place. "You, Sasuke-kun, I've come for you. Now, how about you reveal the ability you've been hiding? It would be a shame to let you die so easily," the man said sadistically, his voice low and condescending. Sasuke felt rage flow through his blood, but he couldn't do anything. The man in front of him was superior in every way possible, from catching Sasuke in that genjutsu from earlier with a mere glance, and being seeming indestructible from the way he tanked his jutsus. He closed his eyes, and the next time they opened, they were scarlet red with two tomo swirling around the pupil. The pale man chuckled. "Wonderful. The real show can finally start. I have to try and surprise him with my offense. Trying to be defensive the entire time will only get me killed. I need to depend on my chances to get an open hit on this man." Sasuke sent a pulse of chakra to feet and bolted down the large branches of the tree he was on, finding that the snake man was still. That would be his mistake. The Uchiha met him with a hook, which was blocked causally with a fist, before he went over the man with a jump, pulling his hand out of his grip. Now on the backside of his enemy, he attempted a sweep kick, which was gracefully leapt over. Sasuke back stepped to dodge a jab at his throat before reaching into his pockets. He grabbed over a dozen shuriken and threw them at once at the opponent. At the same time, he put one of his hands into a seal, charging each of the projectiles with pure lightning. The man looked slightly startled before he leaned back at an unnatural angle for any normal human, shinobi or not. Sasuke smirked. Naruto wasn't the only one who learned new jutsu during his training with Kakashi. Learning he was compatible with lightning was a surprise, but a welcome one, and something he was going to take great advantage of. He pulled on the strings connecting each of the shuriken, bringing them back for a second chance at redemption. The man disappeared in a puff of smoke. Sasuke heard a round of applause from behind him. The ominous voice was recognizable. Good try, Sasuke-kun. I'm truly impressed by your versatility. It's a beauty to the eyes. But I'm afraid that this charade is over." Sasuke felt his vision darken as he felt a jab to his neck from behind. "Itachi. Dash." Orochimaru smiled widely as he eyed the unconscious body of the Uchiha in front of him. Useful indeed. His body will be. All he had to do was administer the mark, and everything will be set to stone. The beloved Sharingan would finally be his. But who was this girl that stood in front of him, trembling with a kunai in her hand? Who cared? Orochimaru swatted aside the kunai before slapping the girl into the overgrowth at the foot of the trees. His plans weren't affected whether she was alive or dead. After all, she was a mere nuisance, someone that didn't need to be dealt with, and someone he would rather not kill just for the sake of time. An ant in a room filled with giants. But Sasuke, on the other hand, Orochimaru chuckled. His plans were going so tremendously well. "Hey, snake freak, another nuisance." Orochimaru didn't give him a glance. Instead, he summoned one of his snakes and directed it towards the boy. Surely, that would be enough for the kill. I said, "Hey, you're really starting to piss me off." The legendary Sannin finally glanced at the boy. Torn orange clothes and yellow hair covered with blonde. Not a trendy look, but most surprisingly was the large, pure black sword that he carried over his back. Orochimaru grinned. "Time for a slaying. Dash in